Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new Fallout 76 video. So, servers are currently, as we speak, down for maintenance, and there is a big old patch on the way in, specifically a really big bug-fixing patch, which is quite interesting. Unusually, we've actually had two sort of mid-season patches for 76 this time around, which is nice. There's a smaller one a few weeks ago, and then this big one. Clearly, Bethesda have been hard at work fixing a lot of stuff. Little unfortunately timed, perhaps, on hot off the heels of yesterday's AWS outage, which if you're having trouble getting into the game yesterday, that would be why, as Amazon Web Services servers, upon which Fallout and about a third of the internet actually depend, were out of action yesterday. So hopefully everything will be coming back to normal today. It certainly looks to be, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. But we have a big old bug-fixing patch here today, so this obviously is not going to be the most exciting of videos. This obviously would be especially boring if I tried to read everything to you, so I'm not going to do that. What I have done is linked down in the description to the actual patch notes, so if you want to read them yourself, you can do. If there's something specific you want more details on, we'll scroll through it, have a general look, and then I will pick out the stuff that I hope is going to be as interesting as possible to as many people as possible. And hopefully, he says, big old fingers crossed, but we'll hopefully keep this down to a reasonable length. So, with that in mind, let's jump in and see what we've got, shall we? Okay, so 76 update notes, October 21st, 2025. So, bringing improvements. Yeah, in short, this is just bug fixes, but there's a lot of them, and some of them are kind of tweaks more than bug fixes, but anyway, you know, tomato, tomato, all of that. So, we'll scroll on down. So there are the numbers and the size. Allegedly 42.8 gigabytes of data on Steam, but down at 15.2 on PlayStation. That's interesting in the sense that it's normally the other way around. PlayStation and or Xbox tend to get the larger patch sizes. Normally Steam gets away with the small one. That being said, this isn't going to take up that much more space on your hard drive, whatever hardware you happen to be using. This is just going to overwrite a lot of files as well, but you will still have to download the data, which is what that's angling towards. So, camps and workshop menu. We've got a whole lot there. We've got changes to the help menu. We've got changes to specific items. A couple of combat changes. Actually, there's a lot of things that tie into combat. But combat in general, some events changes, some of which are relevant now, some of which will become relevant at some point in the future, I guess. Some gameplay adjustments, a whole bunch of stuff on perks we'll definitely look at in more detail. Some miscellaneous stuff, I will cherry pick from that. Some mutations and quest stuff, and a bunch of weapon changes, some more exciting than others, and a couple of other bits and pieces as well. I'll probably skip over the UI stuff, but you can have a look yourself if you want to. So, back up to the top. Camps. So this one I'm going to mostly skip over. For the most part, it's just improving functionality on the new building system. So it's UI adjustments, making sure atomic shop symbols appear where they're supposed to appear and don't appear where they're not supposed to appear. Blueprinting should work a bit better in general, and you also won't be able to build blueprints in shelters, which I've never really understood, but you have been able to do since the update at the beginning of September, and that will no longer be the case, as it was prior to the update. So yeah, that's a thing. There's a few other little bits and pieces that are in there that are specific as well. So you've got things like the decon shower. If you've already learned it, you should now be able to build it, whereas some people were not able to do that. And some little pieces like that. So if there's stuff that you want to check out there is the list for you. Help menu. If you're not familiar with the help menu, you go into your map, you bring up the general game menu the same way you'd log out if you're done playing. And along with the settings and everything else, there's a help menu in there. It's basically an encyclopedia for Fallout 76. I don't know about you, but a lot of people, myself included, definitely overlook the existence of that thing. So yeah, it's an unusual thing that Bethesda do, which is really quite cool of them. So it won't be a small amount of effort to put that thing in. It's pretty comprehensive. So yeah, anyway, they've made a couple of updates to that. I thought I'd, to be honest, it's probably more interesting to highlight that the thing exists, because I know a lot of people forget. So, getting into some slightly more interesting stuff now, some item stuff. So there's a few things that are not functioning as intended or are buildable when they shouldn't be. So you've got things like the blood punch bowl is no longer buildable in shelters, which is consistent with other dispensers. A blue Nuka-Cola vending machine is no longer buildable in shelters either. There's a couple of bits here that I think are from the Mischief Night event. The candy bowl there is also no longer buildable. So this is basically dispenser stuff that's not buildable in shelters anymore, where it was previously and shouldn't have been. Fixed an issue that could cause players to be unable to enter power armor suits unless they drop fusion cores. Weird. Very, very weird, but and kind of more than a little bit counterintuitive. So they've fixed that issue as well, and a couple of other little bits as well. Combat. So this is where we're getting into stuff that I think will interest most of us, what with us all being involved in that sooner or later. Nuke silo mainframe cores will now be damageable by explosions. That's convenient, because depending on your build, sometimes destroying those things can be mildly inconvenient, so throwing a grenade at them is now a viable option again. It definitely makes life a bit easier. Fix an issue causing Scorched Beasts to focus their audio scream attack. Oh, I see. They're only doing that rather than another type of attack, so they should mix up their attacks a bit more, okay? So the event stuff. This is a mixed bag of old and new and stuff that we will see soon and stuff that we won't see until next year, but there we go. Mischief Night. A bit late getting a fix on this one, seeing as that will no longer be running after today's update. Incidentally, we'll have a couple of things going on after this. We will have the Spooky Scorched are back, and also there is a mini-season, which I'll have to do a quick video on as well. That will also be running as of this evening. The Big Bloom is particularly interesting because that'll be coming up next spring. Bit of a wait on that one, but basically following its first run earlier this year, they are tweaking some details that definitely needed to be tweaked. So, for example, Beelzebub's health and damage are being increased. Needed, because that guy lasted about 10 seconds at the end of the event, and it wasn't much of a boss fight. They've increased performance with flower respawning. Okay, so flowers should come back faster, I think? Overgrown now have a chance to drop flowers, which is helpful for that first section of the event. It will make it a bit faster to get through the slow part at the start of the event. And they've lowered the active landmine count. So yeah, they were mildly annoying, just staggering you as you were running around, not really doing much, other than slowing down the progress of that first part of the event, really. Again, so hopefully the slow sort of first section of the event should run a bit more smoothly, and a bit more swiftly, whereas the last part, which is the boss fight, should last a bit longer, because the boss will actually be able to stand up in a fight a bit longer, hopefully. So we've got a couple of bits here that really should be down under some other section, probably the mutations here. So Freezing Touch mutation now deals cryo damage. That makes sense. Decryption, this should be probably somewhere else, but I don't know where exactly, because I don't really see Daily Ops as being an event. But anyway, they are changing the Decryption one. A little bit late, given that if you've got all of the rewards, I can't imagine many people are still running Daily Ops, but still, apart from, farming ammo. But anyway, Decryption is being changed from a increased armor penetration and damage type effect to enemies being higher level. So enemies were basically ignoring all armor, and it was... I mean, I've said a lot of times that I want to see this game be more challenging, and it is ridiculous how little challenge there actually is in 76. I stand by that. However, this wasn't a fun way to do challenge. This was just annoying. So I think shifted it this way is probably a good change. So now, instead of being like ridiculously effective at bypassing your armor, they will just be higher levels than you are used to encountering. So they will dish out more punishment, but not in a ridiculous and annoying manner. So yeah, probably a good change. Like I say, probably a relatively minor one for most long-term players, but for newer players who are perhaps still engaging with the Daily Ops system, maybe something you'd be happy to see. Because I know I tended to skip over Decryption when it came up, just because it wasn't worth it. It wasn't much fun. It took too long. It was just kind of a drag to play. So this will actually make it a little bit more appealing, I think. Anyway, moving on to gameplay. Becoming immune to fall damage while not in power armor, by perks or legendary effects, I guess, now always prevents the stagger animation. So presumably when you fall from a height, that power armor stagger could be a thing, I think it was. Now that shouldn't flare up, which is nice. All cryo damage now has a unified effect that slows the target and drains action points. Okay, that's consistency isn't a bad thing there. The effect scales up the more cryo damage the target takes and recovers over time when they're not taking cryo damage. Cryo resistance also plays a role into how quickly the effect builds up and is recovered from. Weapons and effects that cause a slowing effect now deal cryo damage instead. So that is a general change to a couple of weapons, I think. But yeah, cryo should consistently just slow things down, really, and drain action points. So if you're on the receiving end of it, that's your action points gone. If you're dishing it out, it should slow down the enemies coming at you, which makes it kind of more appealing as a weapon choice or an effect choice. Definitely helpful, especially in sort of the few areas where combat actually is vaguely challenging. So yeah, quite an appealing effect, I think, with that, and more consistency is good. So they fixed a bug where applying slow effects to a target could make them move very fast. Yeah, good fix. And rad damage is no longer converted to a minimum value when loading into the world. Rad damage is now recovered to maximum value when respawning. Also applies to ghoul for glow. This also applies to glow for ghouls. So yeah, basically, I noticed this myself playing as a ghoul. When you change servers or load into a world, the amount of glow you had is reduced. And it will keep reducing if you relog over and over. That should no longer happen. It should stay at a consistent level, I think. But it will go back there if you're respawning. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, so it should basically be consistent across loading into a server as opposed to being reset each time. So yeah, definitely a good change there. Silly little bug, but not the end of the world, but nice to have it fixed. So they fixed an issue where damaging auras would not deal damage in certain cases, and they fixed an issue where players could become stuck in a state where their action points constantly drain. Oh, I've seen that before as well. That's an annoying bug. I don't use that, so it doesn't bother me there, but in terms of it stopping you from running and things, especially when you're doing something timed, very, very annoying. So, yeah, nice to have that fixed. Hopefully that'll be going through nice and sound. Perks. A couple of changes here that are significant, a couple are less significant. Going to affect more people than anything else, I suspect, this one. So cryo damage should now correctly trigger the Deal Sealer perk, so that, if I remember rightly, increases your damage when things are under certain effects. Difficult to remember with the new perk changes. The What Rads perk can now only be equipped by humans. Makes sense. It would be pointless for a ghoul. In fact, it would be specifically unhelpful for a ghoul. It would be a deliberate nerf to yourself. Anyway, Blood Sacrifice. Action points should no longer continue to drain HP when outside of VATS. So very much VAT specific there. The Cloaked icon should now be displayed for Escape Artist and Chameleon perks. One's a legendary effect, the other is a perk, I think. Weird. Anyway, Twisted Muscles penalty to VATS, accuracy, and cone of fire is now reduced by the Class Freak perk card, which is good. That's exactly what the Class Freak perk card is designed to do, reduce the negative impact of your mutations, and if it wasn't doing that, that would be a problem. Four-Leaf Clover now grants the correct amount of crit meter for multiple projectile weapons, so shotguns and the like. And a Fast Fighter now grants 50% of your movement speed above 100%, your bonus movement speed, as reload speed. And improve the utility for black powder weapons, so it should basically be more effective at increasing your reload speed than it was previously. A little buff to Fast Fighter from the sound of it. Life Giver, this one's quite amusing. They fixed an issue where players could die when unequipping this card, presumably because it dips your health a bit. I'm guessing it was more blooded players that were getting hit by this, because the actual amount of health was decreased in proportion to the amount of bonus health that the card was giving them, I would guess. That seems like the likely scenario. But yeah, resulting in players dying if they were at low health when they unequipped it. But quite amusing nonetheless. And they fixed an issue where the HP could be incorrect and overlapping with the RADS portion of the HP bar when this perk card was equipped. So it should give you correct amount of HP bonus and also be clearer about what it's doing, hopefully. Making your health bar a little bit more useful. So Night Eyes. This is an interesting one. It's been reduced to a single point cost, so takes up less space in your perception special attribute. But yeah, it's very much a situational thing. It basically gives you night vision when you crouch. Those who are wondering about this one, though, might want to consider the fact that come December, with the Burning Springs update, in and amongst all the other changes, there will be a slight visual change coming to the game, in that nights will be getting darker. So they do this kind of every time. They tweak the graphics a little, they change lighting, things like that, sort of bit by bit over time. And one of the changes this time around, as I say, will be that nights will be getting darker come December. So yeah, this might be a perk you might want to revisit going forward, especially now that it is slightly less expensive in the perception list. So Number Cruncher now applies to weapon damage over time effects, so that's a little bit of a buff there. It's a small percentage increase to your damage, so quite helpful. Deal Sealer will now apply on a poison and cryo correctly, which is nice. So there's a couple here that I think is a very bad change, and it's part of an ongoing set of bad changes that are logical but also problematic. And that is specifically both Good with Salt and Curator perks are being moved from the Luck list into the Intelligence list. So in terms of what they do, it makes logical sense for them to be intelligence perks. That's fine. The problem is that, and this actually applies kind of to the agility special setup as well, but the intelligence list is now so stacked with perks that do a variety of things that a whole bunch of things that you might have otherwise liked to have taken if they were in other trees, like say in the luck list, are now going to be ignored, abandoned, and basically discarded on the trash pile because they are part of an overfilled list of perks. So there are other things in the intelligence list that is far more useful, will have far more impact on your build than things like Curator or Good with Salt. And you would have to ditch those in order to take these because there are too many things to choose from in those lists. And a similar effect, as I say, applies to agility. So yeah, moving it out of luck into intelligence might have logical sense to the way it functions, but you're making it unusable because there are more important choices to make, more important cards to pick. So yeah, the distribution of perks across the wider special spectrum is problematic here. There's kind of too much in certain things. If we look at the strength tree, there's not as much in there anymore, so there's less you're going to end up picking from, and there are fewer tough choices to be made there. But agility, perception, and intelligence, they have some real tough choices in them because you're going to very, very easily, with a lot of builds, end up maxing out all 15 points spent and still want other stuff that's in the list, which I realise to a certain extent is meant to be the case. You can't have everything. That's kind of the idea of making a build. This goes beyond that. So yeah, I really think they need to review that and redistribute some of these perks because some of these movements are not good. Anyway. Tightly wound. Animation speed should no longer reset when entering or exiting power armor. Okay. And Bloody Mess, they fixed an issue that will allow this to proc on bleed immune targets, therefore making the perk even less useful. Which, yeah, they've changed it so it doesn't do damage in general. It only applies to buff bleeding effects, so it's way more situational now. Bloody Mess has basically been rendered useless, and as I said at the time they did it, which was back at the start of September, the point of this was to be a fun card that was valuable to everybody by making enemies explode into goo and giving a little bit of extra damage. By changing this to a specific singular focused effect, they've completely missed the point of the perk. And the vast majority of players will not now use it because it's a waste of time. So yeah, they have really hugely missed the point and basically ruined this perk. Complete cock-up in my view. But yeah, you know. Yeah, way to have the joke go over your head, essentially, in that particular case. Anyway, moving on, we're kind of getting towards the end of a lot of what I'm going to list here. As I say, check the description if you want to actually have a look through this yourself. I'll link the patch notes down there. So most of this miscellaneous stuff is not massively exciting. One of the things I would pick out from it is the light machine gun Prime 556 and 45 plans will no longer keep dropping from the Scorched Beast Queen once they've been learned. So that's probably the most interesting thing on there, really. So, yeah, no duplicate versions of those plans from the Scorched Beast Queen going forward, which is nice. Moving on to mutations, Bird Bones now displays fall damage reduction in Pip-Boy, so you can actually see what the effect of it is. And they fixed a bug where Herbivore and Carnivore could be acquired at the same time. If you currently have both mutations, they will be removed from your character. So bear that in mind, you will need to reacquire whichever one you want, because you currently have neither as of this evening. So, reading Sacred Tomes of the Mothman will now correctly progress the hidden quest. And we've got a bunch of weapon changes here, or updates. So, damage from explosive launchers, so grenade launchers mainly, with two-shot legendary mod is no longer duplicated. So, those are getting a nerf. So, this is specifically, I think, applying to the explosive damage rather than the direct damage. I think that's usually the way that's meant to work, I think. This is not very clear. But yeah, if you've got an explosive launcher, you will expect to see a little dip if you've got the two-shot legendary mod on it anyway, going forward. Scopes that support multiple zoom levels will now have a button hint for zoom during use, so UI element, that's kind of handy. Alien Blaster Cryo mod now receives benefits from the explosive legendary mod, nice. The Cryo mod for the compound bow will now receive contextual ammo drops, so yeah, Cryo arrows should now drop contextually if you're using the compound bow, that's helpful for those going down that road. Not a bad mod for the compound bow. I don't think it's the best one, but it's not a bad one. Bleed damage on the Cosmic Knife if you're interested in that one from the last season, or this season. I think it was the last season. The durability legendary mod now correctly reduces, but does not remove durability loss when attacking enemies. So things with that on there will still degrade over time, just not as quickly, whereas previously it was basically meaning they couldn't degrade at all. Yeah, definitely over-effective there. Good to see that change. Gatling Plasma Stinging Core Receptacle? Interesting. Now correctly notes it as piercing. Okay, so a little bit more clarity there. Weapons will no longer experience a delay in firing after being reloaded when using effects that increase reload speed, so that's helpful. Yeah, if reload speed is increased and then the thing won't fire, you're basically undoing the effect. So yeah, not exactly a helpful scenario that, so it should actually be a beneficial change, or a beneficial mod now, which is good. And the Miasma mod has been reworked to always deal poison damage to nearby targets, similar to the Plague Walker mutation, so it's a continual area effect thing. Okay. So a couple of fixes for Miscellaneous here. 5.56 ultrasight ammo will now unlock as expected for the LMG. A little bug there, that's fine. Improved cryo effects for multiple weapons. Nice, especially now that those are consistently slowing enemies, so definitely helpful. Players should no longer be able to continue to use also melee weapons after running out of action points, which is one of the key ways in which they are restrained from being even more ridiculous than they already are, and they are pretty ridiculous. Improve the ability to target bee swarms in VATs. That's cool, because those things are mildly annoying to target at all. So, yeah, that's not bad. And Nuka-Cola ammo is now listed as an explosive type. Okay, so we've got a few other bits there of UI changes as well. So, as we can see, a very extensive list of bug fixes here, and that's without me going through all of them by any stretch of the imagination. As I said, again, link down below if you want to check the full patch notes out. This is just a bug fixing patch, but they're not exciting, but they're definitely necessary and welcome, I think. Hopefully a few areas should go a bit more smoothly, some bugs that were slightly annoying, and removing the effectiveness of things definitely being squashed there, which is good to see. The building menu hopefully being a little bit more, well, having the improved functionality be further improved, I suppose, with the new changes, which is nice. Definitely a positive set of changes. And yeah, as I say, the one big thing that I'm really unhappy about when I look at it in here is that shift of get more stuff into the intelligence perk list, because as it is intelligence and to a lesser degree agility and perception, there's so much stuff to pick from there that stuff is being left by the wayside that might not otherwise be, and might be considered more valuable if it was in another tree. But because of where they've moved it, it has been deprioritized just by dint of the choice that they've made there, which is disappointing in my view. I think it's a bad call. Definitely something that needs reviewing, the spread of perks across the special abilities in particular going forward. But yeah, hope you guys found that useful and informative. I know these things are not the most amazingly exciting videos. Massive kudos if you made it this far. I do appreciate you. If you like the video, please consider dropping likes and subs. I very much appreciate. Hit that notification bell and keep up to date with what's happening in 76. And down below, we've got social media links in the description, channel memberships down below if you want to support the channel. I very, very much appreciate that. And yeah, join us for live streams too. We're currently kind of on a little live stream hiatus from 76 because we're doing the same thing over and over again, and it's not massively exciting at the moment. However, we'll probably be jumping back in a bit more when Burning Springs drops in December, and we've got some other really cool stuff going on the streaming front at the moment as well. So maybe you want something a little different to watch? Dive in, check it out. Weekday evenings, should be good fun. And also, as a parting shot on the Fallout 76 note, there's a couple of things happening for the rest of this month and beyond as regards seasonal events and stuff, so keep an eye out for those videos too. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.